Hey everyone, Pastor Tim here. It's been 3 weeks since we've been together for Thinking Person's Guide to Faith, so it's good to have you with us tonight. And if you're joining us live, hello. And if you're joining us a little later on, watching the on-demand recording, glad to have you with us tonight. Want to let you know that the comments are live and available for you if you want to check in, say hi, where you're watching from, what you're up to tonight. If you've got a prayer request you want to send in, you can do that as well. I know it always takes, as we say, every time we get together, it takes a little while for people to join us and to get on board with us. So let me tell you what's going to be happening a week from tonight. We won't be doing Thinking Person's Guide to Faith next Wednesday night, because next Wednesday night is Ash Wednesday. It is the start, the kickoff of the Lenten season, the Easter season. And so next week, next Wednesday night, rather than coming to you for Bible study online, we're going to have an event at church for you. So we're going to do Drive-Through Ashes. So here's how it's going to work. Next Wednesday, I'm going to be sending you an email. And in that email, it will talk a little bit about what Ash Wednesday is all about. I have a devotional for you to read through sometime during the day by yourself or with your family. And that will prepare you for the receiving of ashes then in the evening. So anytime from 4 to 7 o'clock a week from tonight, next Wednesday, Ash Wednesday, March 2nd, anytime between 4 p.m. and 7 p.m., you can drive over to the campus, stay in your car, and we will put the ashes on you. We'll mark you with the cross of Christ with the ashes to kick off the Lenten season. So again, next Wednesday, you'll receive an email from me if you're on our email list. And then that will give you a devotional work through, get you ready for Ash Wednesday. And then you can come anytime next Wednesday evening, March 2nd. And that's from 4 to 7 o'clock, drive through ashes and just drive on through. And we're going to put some signs out, and maybe we'll get some people from the neighborhood to join us as well. I want to remind you again that the comment section is on. So if you want to say hi, please do that. If you've got a prayer request, we'd love to pray for you. A number of you have been asking about Jan and how Jan is doing. And, when I share our cancer story, certainly I'm very, very aware of the fact that there are a lot of cancer stories in our congregation. And we've had a number of funerals over the last few weeks of people who have passed away from cancer. And so I share my story as a part of the story of our community. And thank many of you for asking. Next, so far, the news has been encouraging. We met with an oncologist a week ago, and she outlined an initial plan, which will include chemo pills, radiation. However, she is a bit concerned about some things that they've seen on the liver through CAT scan, not through PET scan, but CAT scan. And so she is going to put Jan in another PET scan a week from today. So on Ash Wednesday, we're going to be at the Cancer Treatment Center all day long. We start about 8:30 in the morning, and we're there till about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So they're going to do the PET scan, and then we're going to meet with a radiologist. We're going to meet with a geneticist. We're going to meet with the oncologist. And if the PET scan gives them what they want, then they will begin treatment. And even if the cancer has moved to the liver, they're still very positive that they can treat it and actually eliminate it. My guess is, they haven't said this, but my guess is if the PET scan doesn't quite give them all the information they want, then they'll move on to a biopsy of the liver, which they've suggested they might do. They also might want to do a probe down into the pancreas, because that tends to be the source of this kind of cancer, and they want to know where the source is. So even though we've received some encouraging news, we still don't have the whole story yet. And we know that there's going to be some treatment here in the near future. And those of you who have, been through things like chemo, or have had family members go through it, you know that it can be trying. So we certainly appreciate your prayers, and we will keep you up to speed as much as we possibly can. All right. That's what we're going to be. So today what we're doing is in Thinking Person's Guide to Faith right now during this season, we are digging deeper into the Gospel of Luke. We're going through the Gospel of Luke together this year, following Jesus through the Gospel of Luke. Our theme is Get Used to Different. And we're seeing just how unique Jesus really is. So each week we look at a different story from the Gospel of Luke. And then on Wednesday nights, we go deeper. We cover some of the things that I don't have time to cover. So, for example, a few weeks ago, we actually spent 3 weeks Thinking Person's Guide to Faith in Luke chapter 2, because there's so much rich stuff there. And if you didn't get a chance to see those, you can see scrolling underneath here on our website, boldrecklessgrace.org/thinking. You'll find all the Thinking Person's Guide to Faith. Thinking Person's Guides to Faith. How's that? Today what we're going to do is dig a bit deeper into Luke chapter 5, verses 1 through 11. This is the series or the sermon that I talked about this last weekend. It's the story of Peter being chosen by Jesus to go out and catch people with grace. And so we're going to review some things we talked about this weekend, and then I'm going to tease out some things that I didn't have a chance to talk about on the weekend. So let me read for you once again. A little unky, as I always am on Wednesday nights for some reason. Let me read for you once again the story from Luke chapter 5, verses 1 through 11, just to get us all on the same page. Once while Jesus was standing beside the lake of Gennesaret, and the crowd was pressing in on him to hear the word of God, he saw 2 boats there at the shore of the lake. The fishermen had gone out of them and were washing their nets. He got into one of the boats, the one belonging to Simon, and asked him to put out a little way from the shore. Then he sat down and taught the crowds from the boat. When he had finished speaking, he said to Simon, "Put out into the deep water and let down your nets." Simon answered, "Master, we have worked all night long, but have caught nothing. Yet, if you say so, I'll let down the nets." When they had done this, they caught so many fish that their nets were beginning to break. So they signaled their partners in the other boat to come and help them, and they came and filled both boats so that they began to sink. But when Simon Peter saw it, he fell down at Jesus' knees, saying, "Go away from me, Lord, for I am a sinful man." For he and all who were with him were amazed at the catch of fish that they had taken. And so also were James and John, sons of Zebedee, who were partners with Simon. Then Jesus said to Simon, "Do not be afraid. From now on, you will be catching people." When they had brought their nets to shore, they left everything and followed him. All right, so let's kind of walk through verse by verse. Again, we're going to review some things I talked about this weekend, which is great. It's always good to sort of get reminders of what the story's about. And I'll tease out some things that we hadn't talked about this weekend. So verse 1, verse 1 and 2. While Jesus was standing beside the lake of Gennesaret, and the crowd was pressing in on him to hear the word of God, he saw 2 boats there at the shore of the lake. The fishermen had gone out of them and were washing their nets. So this is the scene, all right? And you might want to go, afterwards and do a little Google search of the Sea of Galilee and kind of get a sense of what it was like during the days of Jesus. But essentially, the Sea of Gennesaret, or the Lake of Gennesaret, is the same as the Sea of Galilee. They're talking about the same lake. It's also referred to as the Sea of Tiberias. Tiberius was one of the emperors of Rome. There's actually the city of Tiberias on the Sea of Galilee. And so it had these various names: Lake of Gennesaret, it had Sea of Galilee, and then it also had the Sea of Tiberias. The Sea of Galilee is an immense lake. It's just this beautiful, stunning area. The lake is 13 miles long. It is 8 miles wide. That's a big lake. It sits 680 feet below sea level. It's a freshwater lake. The Jordan River flows into it, and then the Jordan River flows out of it. It is surrounded by some beautiful plains, but also by a lot of hills and even semi-mountains. And because of that, and because it's below sea level, that's the reason why these storms can pop up all of a sudden. You've got that air, the cool air of the mountains flowing down into the warm air of the lake. It meets and can instantly cause a storm. So this is the Sea of Galilee. And the Sea of Galilee at the time of Jesus had 9 cities around the northern area of it. And there are some who suggest that each of the cities had 15,000 inhabitants. So these are fairly big cities or towns that surround the Sea of Galilee. And of course, much of the commerce would be fishing It would be crops, agriculture. And that sort of sets the setting for where this story takes place. It's on the northern side of the Sea of Galilee, near the city of Capernaum. Now, as I mentioned on Sunday, Peter and his buddies are out fishing, and they fish at night because they fish with nets. The reason why it doesn't work to fish in the daytime is because the nets can be seen by the fish, shadows of the boat can be seen by the fish, and it will scare them off. And so they fish at night, fish all night long. And they have been out fishing, and they've been back. They're now on shore, and they're starting to wash their nets. So they're coming to the end of their workday, just as most people are beginning their workday and just starting to get up. Peter and John and others, James, were a part of a fishing business. It was probably Peter's dad's business, and the sons of Zebedee, Zebedee's business as well. These guys probably would have been middle-class laborers, made enough money to make a fairly good living. They paid a lot of taxes, which becomes an issue for Peter when Jesus calls Matthew, the tax collector, to join the band of followers. And remember, they're living under Roman oppression. So the taxation they're experiencing is Roman taxation. The oppressors are taxing them and, of course, ruling their land. And that's the scenario in which we find Peter working. So Jesus got into one of the boats, the one belonging to Simon. Now, just as a note here, Simon is Simon Peter. Jesus hasn't yet named him Peter, but Luke will use the name Peter once in this story, just to remind us that the Simon we're talking about here is not just any Simon. It is Simon Peter, the one who becomes the leader of the Christian church. So Jesus got into one of the boats, the one belonging to Simon, and he asked Simon to put out a little way from the shore. Then he sat down and taught the crowds from the boat. So as I said this weekend, crowds are beginning to gather around Jesus to the point where they can't see him, nor can they hear him. So Jesus, by going out from the shore a bit in the boat, enables the people to see, because there's a little incline from the shore as it goes up into the land. And so people are able to sort of stand on that incline, see Jesus out in the boat. And there's this natural amplification because they're on the water, which amplifies the voice, and they're surrounded by hills and gently sloping hills. And that helps with the amplification, so people are able to hear Jesus as well. And I've actually had the experience, as have some of you, been to Israel, where the place where we think the Sermon on the Mount was taught is on a hill, like it's a natural amphitheater almost. And you can have someone stand at the bottom of that hill and just talk in their normal voice, and you can hear them all the way up the hill. And that's how so many people could hear Jesus without a microphone. They just had natural amplification. So Jesus climbs into Simon's boat. And again, this is not the first time that Jesus and Simon have had an encounter with each other. Jesus had a brief meeting with Peter in Luke chapter 4, the chapter just before this. And here's what it says. After leaving the synagogue, Jesus entered Simon's house. Now, Simon's mother-in-law was suffering from a high fever, and they asked him about her. Then Jesus stood over her and rebuked the fever, and it left her. Immediately she got up and began to serve them. Now, it's sort of hard for me to paint a picture of Capernaum, but as it sits today, there is let's say that the I'm trying to get my bearings here for you, get my hands up there. So off to this side of me is the lake, okay? And over on this side, I don't know, wherever. Anyway, there's the lake over here, and then you move from the lake up to Capernaum. And in Capernaum is a fairly big synagogue, but it's not the original synagogue. It's a synagogue that was built during the Byzantine era, but it's on top of the original synagogue from Capernaum when Jesus would have been there. And then between the Sea of Galilee and the synagogue are homes. And one of those homes, just a short walk away, is what many people believe to be Peter's house. Sort of taken them a minute or two to walk from the synagogue to Peter's house. And the reason why they think it's Peter's house is because archaeology has unearthed some symbolism, some signs in the house itself that have been carved into the walls that suggests it was a holy place. And the evidence suggests strongly that this is where Peter lived. It became a sacred place. So Jesus walks over, maybe a minute or two walk. They get to Peter's house, find out his mother-in-law is ill, and Jesus heals her. So when Jesus comes to Peter, who's been working all day long and is tired and exhausted, and said, "Can I borrow your boat?" Peter probably thinks, well, I do owe him one. He did something nice for me. I'm going to do something nice for him. When Jesus had finished speaking, he said to Simon, "Put out into the deep water and let down your nets for a catch." Simon answered, "Master, we have worked all night long, but have caught nothing. Yet if you say so, I will let down the nets." Again, we talked about this on the weekend. Simon was an experienced fisherman. He knew that if you don't catch any fish in the evening, you're not going to catch any fish during the daytime. And they hadn't caught any fish, not one, zero. So that's a wasted work day. And some of you know what that's like, to just work all day long and you get home and someone says, "How'd it go today? What'd you get done?" And nothing. And in this case, if Peter doesn't catch fish, he doesn't make money. So it was a lost day of earnings. So he kind of says to Jesus, "Look, it's not going to work, but Jesus, look, I know it's you. I just listened to you again, and all right, we'll give it a shot." So they head out to the deep water. Now, in the Bible, deep water is a symbol or metaphor for chaos. We have scriptures throughout the Old Testament in particular about water as representing chaos. For example, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth was in chaos. It was formless. It was a deep void, and the Spirit of God hovered over it. And part of the story of Genesis is that God's Spirit hovers over the chaos of the deep, and he brings order and life out of the chaos and the deep. And so over and over again in the Old Testament, deep water represents chaos. And then God hovers over that chaos to bring life. And so in part what Luke is doing here is he is using metaphorically a story to remind us that the people of Israel at that time are living in deep chaos. They are living under Roman oppression. They are living under Jewish factions. They are living under Pharisees trying to impose stricter and stricter laws. They are living in chaos. And Jesus, in this moment, when he's about to do the miracle, goes out into that chaos to begin to do something new, to begin to bring order, to begin to bring life. So we've got Jesus, Peter going out into the deeper water, which metaphorically is also a symbol for going out in the chaos, and Jesus is going to do something new and fresh. When they had done this, when they had gone out into the deeper water, they caught so many fish that their nets were beginning to break. They signaled their partners in the other boat to come and help them, and they came and filled both boats so that they began to sink. So here we have really in Luke's gospel, the first miracle of abundance. And there are a number of miracles of abundance that Jesus performs, where he goes over and beyond what's even necessary. So, for example, we'll have the story of the feeding of the 5,000. And after 15,000 people are fed with a couple loaves of fish and a couple loaves of bread and a few fish, there's still 12 baskets full left over, an overabundance of grace. The same thing happens when Jesus feeds a crowd of the 4,000, which probably is 8 to 12,000 people. And again, an overabundance as they have 7 baskets full left over. You think of the story of Jesus turning water into wine. And this is the last day of the wedding festival. All right, people are starting to go home. They've already had too much to drink. And Jesus changes 120 gallons of water into wine, an overabundance of God's joy. And so here we have Jesus bringing out of this chaos an overabundance of grace in the form of fish, so many fish that it begins to weigh down 2 boats full of that fish. And what Jesus is saying here in part is that the reign of God is a reign of abundant grace. And that abundant grace, it brings love, it brings order where there is chaos. When Simon Peter saw it, and here notice now he uses the word Peter. When Simon Peter saw it, he fell down at Jesus' knees, saying, "Go away from me, Lord, for I am a sinful man." For he and all who were with him were amazed at the catch of fish they had taken, and so also were James and John, sons of Zebedee, who were partners with Simon. So what we have here is a typical response to the holiness of Jesus. Peter falls down, Simon Peter falls down at the feet of Jesus and says, "Jesus, you need to leave because I am not the kind of guy that you want to be hanging with." Think about Moses when he's standing at that burning bush and God says to him, "I want you to rescue the people of Israel." And Moses said, wait a minute. I'm not good enough for this. First of all, I don't know who you are. And secondly, I don't have the ability to speak. I get tongue-tied. I stutter. Jeremiah, the prophet called by God, said, "I can't do this. I'm too young. There's no way." We also have the story of Isaiah, who's being called by God to be a prophet. No way. I'm the wrong guy. And so Peter's resistance to the call of Jesus roots us back in the Old Testament, and how one saint after another just said, "I'm not good enough." And a reminder that God uses flawed, scared, ordinary people like me and like you. And we may be hesitant at first. We just don't think we've got what it takes. But Jesus knows better. And if he can open the mouth of Moses to speak, if he can give Jeremiah and Isaiah the courage to speak tough words of grace to the people of Israel, if he can help Peter preach the gospel in such a way that thousands of people come to know who Jesus is, he can use me, he can use you. Jesus said to Simon, "Do not be afraid. From now on, you will be catching people." When they had brought their boats to shore, they left everything and followed him. So Jesus, in the face of Peter's hesitancy, Jesus says, "Don't be afraid." Isn't that interesting? You would think that if Peter's feeling inadequate, if he's feeling humbled, that rather than saying, "Don't be afraid," Jesus would say, "Hey, Peter, it's okay. You're up for it. Don't feel bad about yourself. Don't put yourself down. Don't sell yourself short." But instead, he says, "Don't be afraid." Why is that? Well, first of all, the phrase, "don't be afraid" or "fear not," is the number one command in the Bible. Fear not. And oftentimes it's used in situations like this, where people come face to face with the glory of God. In the Old Testament, and of course in the New Testament, but in the Old Testament in particular, people believed that if they came to face with the glory of God unfiltered, that it would kill them. That human beings simply cannot stand in the presence of that kind of goodness and grace and light. It's like getting close to the sun. The closer you get, the hotter it is. And at some point, it's just going to burn you up. The sun may be good for us. It may keep us warm, but you get face to face with the sun, you're toast. And the belief was the same. And so there were times when in the Old Testament, Moses and other of the characters came really face to face with God and were afraid they were going to die. And then God would say, "Hey, don't be afraid. It's okay. It's okay." We have a story where Moses asks to see the glory of God, to see his face. And God said, "Well, seriously, you can't see my face and live to tell about it. But what I will do is show you my back." And so God passes by Moses and shows him his back. And it's a back of glory and honor and forgiveness and grace. And it's overwhelming. And it doesn't say this, but you can imagine Moses thinking to himself, "Man, if this is what the back of God looks like, imagine what his face is like." And so what we have here, when Jesus is saying to Peter, "Don't be afraid," it's an allusion to these Old Testament characters, leaders, who who have been in the presence of the face of God and they're afraid they're going to die. And Peter has that similar sense. He is standing face to face with the glory of God in the person of Jesus. And he is afraid that he's not going to be able to stand in that presence because he's a sinful man. So Jesus says, don't be afraid. From now on, you will be catching people. Now, usually we think about this as Jesus saying to them, you're going to be fishing for people. And there's the old song, I will make you fishers of men if you follow me. But Luke doesn't use fishing language so much. Where Matthew might use it, Mark might use it. Matthew uses the phrase catching people. It's the same sensibility, but Luke is just offering a little different nuance to this. And when he's talking about catching people, remember, they use nets. They aren't hooking people in and dragging them in. They use nets to sort of cover them and gently nurture them into the kingdom of God. And that's what they're going to be doing. They'll be catching people with grace, not hunting them down, not forcing them into the boat. They're going to overwhelm them as Jesus overwhelmed Peter with grace so that all they can do is leave their lives and follow Jesus. So Peter here is just an ordinary guy. He's a fisherman. As I said, Sunday probably couldn't cut it in trying to get on with a rabbi. And yet Jesus comes and calls him. And Peter catches people for Jesus. And the same invitation is given to you. Follow Jesus. So that's a little bit about Luke chapter 5, verses 1 to 11. This weekend, we're going to look at the next story now where Jesus has an encounter with a leper. And it's another great story. And then a week from tonight, March 2nd, Ash Wednesday, we're not going to have Thinking Person's Guide to Faith. We're going to be doing Ashes to Go at church. So again, I'm going to send out to you an email. It will be a devotional on Ash Wednesday to prepare you for being marked with ashes. And then anytime between 4 and 7 o'clock, load up the car, come on out to the church, just get in line, stay in your car, and we'll come and we'll mark you with the cross of Christ using ashes. All right, looking forward to being with you this weekend. Thanks for joining me. And I hope that you have a very, very nice night and a good rest and a blessed day tomorrow. Good night.